Good afternoon, everybody. It's Lorraine Alternative Homesteading on Tuesday, February 24, 2026. I hope everybody's doing well. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome, newcomers. And I'm going to continue reading from the book Circle of Snakes by Bobby Towers. His name is actually Robert Torres. But I'm going to continue with chapter 3. And I really like this book. I read it when I lived in New Jersey, and for some reason it just didn't make it here to Kentucky. And then a kind subscriber purchased it for me. And it's very easy reading. This one was republished in December of 2025, but this book is at least 7 or 8 years old, maybe even older than that. So keep that in mind when you're reviewing some of the violations and stuff that he mentions here and how he was able to get out of the program. It had a lot to do with other things that were happening in the police department where he lived. So this book is 80 pages long, and I'm starting back on chapter 3, Techniques, Tactics, and Technology. What was happening to me? So this book is a testimony of everything that happened to him. And the reason he's writing this book is to alert you as to what he did to document, get out of it, and the things that he deduced and researched based upon his own experiences. So he has a diagram here. He says that this, I suspect, was a global psychotronic wave test transmission, perhaps emitted from HARP, since it is run by the Navy, and these images were purged when they found out they had been leaked. So let me just show you basically what that is so you can see it. Okay. So once again, this is Circle of Snakes by Bobby Towers. And this beautiful mini painting is, actually it's unmarked here. I don't remember who wrote this, who drew this. I'm going to have to look it up. There might be a little art card with it somewhere. But it's adorable. And it is sliding down. So, December 7, 8, 2001. GOES 10 Naval Satellite Survey of the Pacific region, including much of the central U.S., recorded anomalous atmospheric conditions across a full range of frequencies. Both the infrared and invisible spectrum measurements revealed an octagonal tiling of concentric circles. The full frequency pulsation was recorded for many hours through the night. Over the entire area surveyed by the satellite, the anomalous field most likely encompassed the whole globe for the full duration of the event, never seen before or since. And again, this is at least, I'm going to say 8-10 years ago. Government gang stalking is different than all other stalking because, as I've said before, it represents the ultimate betrayal. Not only to the victims, but to the country itself. It isn't only tyranny in the classic sense, it's also traitorous. You may have for some reason been declared quote-unquote an enemy of the state without due process. Another thing that makes it completely different is the overwhelming imbalance of power. Any of you that are familiar with my background should know that I don't live and breathe government conspiracy. I used to be a music reviewer, but now I write articles for different sites and magazines about everything and anything: science, religion, spirituality, philosophy, physics, metaphysics, education, politics, and one of my favorites, the paranormal. But this evil, and I have to say, when he writes the word evil, it's always in caps. I mean, he does this for emphasis. But this evil activity happened to me, and so I write about it. After reading much of what many of you have gone through your emails and posts, I'll share with you some of what has gone on with me as insight. In this chapter, I'll also include some of what they do and how they go about doing it. No one, of course, told me they were doing these things, but I have experienced almost all of the classic TI scenarios. I put much of it together by deduction, and some things I have never acknowledged or told anyone, even to this day, like the green, not so high altitude flares. At least that's what they look like to me. I was once taking a shortcut through the woods because my car was stuck and there was a green flare. This can only be done by someone who knows your whereabouts at all times and wants you to know they know. It's part of their little superior war mind game. So he has another photo here. He says, above left, the image from a backscatter x-ray. The mini handheld backscatter is the same type used in airports and border checkpoints, but can be aimed unsuspectingly and can cause cancer. This is for educational purposes only. I am merely reading a book of research performed by the author. On the right hand, there's a handheld V2K device for direct voice-to-skull communication. Let me show you what this looks like. These are small devices. And I was just looking at Sean Atwood's video. He has like a little video that he put out, like a trailer of an upcoming video that he's going to have about these very devices and how they have weaponized, they have technology to use your cell phone as a directed energy weapon. I didn't say that, guys. You'll have to wait for his video to come out tomorrow. So that tactic was used to let me know that they were always watching, but it also reveals a technique. It means that you are somehow most likely transmitting through something that you are carrying or wearing. Unless you're truly TI, most of what goes on would seem far outside your understanding or frame of reference. There is a quote I made up, and I put it in my first book. Quote, most paranoid schizophrenics believe they're being watched, and it drives them crazy. I know I'm being watched, and could care less, unquote. And this is my friend. It is your best defense. Knowledge. Knowing what's going on keeps you sane. I never told anyone about the green flares until my book. Of course, when others saw them too, I just acted as surprised as them. And another thing I never told anyone but my family about were the military copters, the helicopters, the military helicopters that were always around. But others did notice and mention them. Also, to this day, I don't believe I told anyone about the sound blasted by an F-18 fighter jet. These are things that the average TI will never experience. For some reason, the helicopters became commonplace. The F-18 thrown in was bizarre. After selling the house, investing the money into my business, and losing it because of these people, I was going through some tough times. I moved to New Haven, which is Connecticut, by the way. New Haven, Connecticut. I took a job as a welder to make ends meet. I was living in an apartment provided to me by my work right next door. The military helicopters had now become part of my regular environment, and they were loud. Another part of my routine was going to the New Haven Public Library to work on my first book. In my research, I began linking the gang-stalking stuff to the military, but not just because of the constant presence of the helicopters. It was a lot of other reasons too, like the entire style, resources, and what seemed like a lack of concern for a budget. The research into black ops like MK Ultra 2 became part of the portrait. Then I realized it was all military based, including the bizarre happenings. Now, one day, As I'm at home writing on my laptop, I hear a loud military helicopter buzzing as usual, which you can feel through the ground. This time, however, I hear a thunderous roar, and the entire apartment begins shaking. There it is again. After a couple of minutes, I go outside to see that it is, in fact, an F-18 fighter jet directly overhead buzzing my apartment. I mean, this was a low, right above the trees, just like the helicopter, which was within eye shot off to the west. This goes on for at least a half an hour, with the jet having to fly in wide circles. It does this at least 10 times right over my apartment, and I'm thinking, they have really gone out all day today. It didn't shock me, but I was thinking these show-offs are crazy. They are nuts, for sure. But how would they explain what they were doing in New Haven? There's no military air base nearby. But as it turns out, they came from Virginia, 500 miles away, buzzed by my house, and went back to Virginia. So I wait and I watch the news, and here's what they say. Fighter jet flying over Connecticut skies. WTNH News, 8/27/2009 by Bob Wilson, posted 8/28/09 by Cosmic Kitty with a K, Cosmic Kitty. North Haven. Many people in Connecticut got quite a scare this afternoon when a military fighter jet was spotted flying in circles at low altitude. News Channel 8 New Haven field dozens of phone calls and emails from concerned viewers around 4:30 p.m. I got nervous, really nervous, said one witness from North Haven. Back and forth for a good 25 minutes, and it scared the heck out of the neighborhood. We were inside the building, and you could really hear it, and the windows were shaking, said another. The jets were spotted in North Haven, Wallingford, Milltown, and Hartford. But what were they doing here? News Channel 8 went looking for answers. We called the Connecticut Air Guard, Governor's Office at Bradley Airport, and no one knew anything about it. We called the FAA, and they said that it was an F-18 fighter out of Virginia on a legal training mission. But the military did not notify the FAA like they normally do. And that's in bold print. Get it? The military did not, quote unquote, not notify the FAA or anybody else. Another note here is that North Haven is north of the border of New Haven, and the jet made wide circles and kept coming back over New Haven and my apartment. I linked the military to gang stalking in my research for my book on the public library computer. And then what happens? An F-18 does a training mission right over my apartment. The newscast I watched said New Haven and never mentioned the other towns. And no one mentioned any military helicopter that was as clear as day from my apartment. I wouldn't have included it in my story, but I found proof of it online while writing this manual. Also, this is from the Hartford Courant newspaper. This accidental F-18 flyby inspired Connecticut Governor Rell to pen a nasty gram to Navy Commander J.J. Cummings on the Oceana Naval Air Station in Virginia Beach, home of the offending fighter jet. According to an August 29, 2009 report in the Hartford Courant by Christine Dempsey and David Owens, quote, witnesses say the jet flew about 100 feet over treetops and performed twisting maneuvers, Rell wrote. All of this occurred above densely populated neighborhoods and below radar levels. This represents an incredibly perilous disregard for the safety of our citizens and is absolutely unacceptable. Okay, so as bizarre as all this stuff seems to most people, to me it was a message that they wanted to send. And it's just another day in the life. We are almighty and can do whatever we want. It could be a coincidence, of course. I start writing the military into my book, and that's exactly the same time the F-18 buzzes my apartment. That's not a coincidence, men and women. They're stalking him, and they decided to show him what they can do. Aside from this crazy stuff, like most other TIs, I got it all. There was a street theater, there were strangers put on show for you. They usually act like normal people bumping into each other, or maybe already in a group where you might be in public. Then they start to talk about things that they know will relate to you personally. And these are called triggers. Anyone around you not in on it will usually not pick up on the act, so it's difficult to prove. Again, this requires knowledge of you, which requires coordination through some central source. And it all does. It all requires coordination, which requires resources. And when it crosses town or state lines, you can rule out anyone local. Anyway, locals don't usually have budgets for the organized constant surveillance and the mental torture of a non-major criminal, which describes most TIs, targeted individuals. Using the techniques in this chapter along with modern technology and wave weapons, any of the target's privacy can be removed. You can destroy them, their businesses, their relationships, their jobs. And because everything is done covertly, it's all deniable. If the person doesn't show what's going on, they may think that they were going crazy. If they do know what's going on and tell somebody, whoever they tell, may think they're going crazy. Then there's the use of media, and this gives them a way bit more. It means someone can pull big strings. When you have an overwhelming desire to control the masses, it is a natural extension that you would wish to control all forms of media. I used to hang with this one guy who did work for my company. I suspected he might have been planted from the day I met him and how I met him. So I tested this by feeding him phony information. I would just make certain stuff up and see what the effects would be when and if he reported back or called it in. Anyway, every time I would run into him, the same song would play on the radio of my car or any car we were in. One day before I started my car, I told him the song that was going to play on the radio. Sure enough, there it was, and he said, quote unquote, "How did you know that?" And I said, "Because it's always the same song every time I run into you." He said, "Yeah, but what was the first song?" "Not like the third song. It was the first song," I said. "That's because I'm being watched." There were the home break-ins, things were moved, things were turned on. I came home one day in the kitchen area of my home office. The ceiling light fixture was on the counter next to the sink, and the faucet was running full blast, but nothing was taken. There were the car hits, the police harassment, people following me and others around. There was the destruction of my business by harassing my clients and customers. Yes, I started a business out of my home, doing mostly internet work, but I would often have to meet with local clients and customers. Some of them told me that they were pulled over and questioned as soon as they left my house. I believe that's happened to me also. They were mostly business owners that I was doing custom computer or web work for, graphic design, multimedia. Although most of my businesses were done online for well-known national companies and chains. Casio, Guitar Center, PV, Gibson, Hard Rock, House of Blues, Rock House, NFL, Ibanez, The Imus Show. I used to be like this computer geek, and I even set up and taught specialized computer teaching classes for the Board of Education in my town. The harassment got so intense, I had to rent a commercial spot in another town, but it continued until my business was destroyed. They want to keep you down. They don't seem to want you to advance beyond a certain point, and most people won't believe that. They won't believe that they sabotage businesses while letting others go on without interference. They decide whose business to destroy. I mean, they might not care if you succeed as a landscape worker, but they don't want to see some people become successful. This also extremely, let's see, this also extends especially to the political arena. Play the game by their rules and watch your back. Of course, they aren't always successful, but they can make it as difficult as possible. Any anonymous leak story for the press here or there about a politician? It happens all the time. Most of these tactics are standard, but I experience many otherwise will never be exposed because they are so far beyond believable, like the F-18 fighter jet. What would be the point of caring? What would be the point of caring whether people believe me? It would just be a long string of continuous coincidences, like the fact that as soon as I linked the military to gang stalking on the library computer, an F-18 starts buzzing by my house. That has never happened before either. See what I mean about coincidence? But it's still only what you can prove. Much more detail and crazy stuff is in my book, Synthesis. It's like synthesis, but it's Synthesis, and I've read that book also. But I'm trying to keep this a short self-help. I experienced electricity cutoffs through entire area blackouts. I'm also sure I was bugged, tapped, things planted in my car, hidden cameras, and I suspect electronic attacks, cyber stalking. I was often tailed and pulled over so many times, while almost always having my car and passengers searched. I never got a ticket, but it discourages friends from associations with you. Several different police departments were in my final written DOJ complaint. The rest of those not in my uniform involved were persons unknown to me. I'm sure many were some type of law enforcement, and I knew it was all completely connected. Now, those are some of the tactics, but what type of technology is used? First, be aware that it's very easy for a non-government group or even a lone stalker to obtain or manufacture some of this technology, including homemade wave weapons. When people mention quote-unquote silent kill, it usually refers to having the target commit suicide. This is for educational purposes only. I'm reading a book. So these tactics are key to the manipulation of human behavior. These programs use psychological techniques by repeatedly, without cease, creating daily nuisances. You could create a life of overwhelming stress for the target. And yes, these criminals killed a kitten yesterday. They killed a kitten yesterday. What they did is they damaged the left eye, as they usually do. The left eye was bulging, and even though I use terramycin every day, the eye was so deeply infected by whatever was implanted in the eye, it would ooze pus. Finally got it under wraps, fed the kitten by hand. They killed the kitten overnight. Little baby, little black kitten. These programs use psychological techniques by repeatedly, without cease, creating daily nuisances so you can create a life of overwhelming stress for the target, like killing your animals, causing them to lose their job, damaging their car, invading their personal space, stealing from their home, taking their mail. All of these things add up. Oh, how about drawing pentacles on all of your mail? Yeah, like these Satanist losers. That's what they do to me. My mail shows up with pentacles drawn on them. Normally, it would all seem like bad luck. If you could fill someone's life with bad luck and then have the ability to have them audited, you have control of their mental state. There's another method of silent kill, and this is all done using high-tech wave weaponry. They emit all kinds of waves, including microwaves. They can literally cook you slowly. Or X-rays can be used, which can give you cancer quickly, like the handheld Mini Z backscatter that I mentioned previously. Many others are called psychotronic because with a wavelength of around 8 hertz, they affect your consciousness or brain waves. This is because the frequency of your brain waves are about 8 hertz too, causing either interference or entrainment. These weapons can be aimed at a target to alter your mood, erase memory, or kill you. These weapons have been documented through investigation as being tested on unassuming U.S. citizens, and in 2001, Russian President Vladimir Putin signed into law a bill making it illegal to use weapons of psychotronic influence. Well, good for you. At least somebody's working on this problem. Many countries around the world have on several occasions introduced legislation before the UN to have global ban on mined psychotronic weapons, but the U.S. has consistently stood in the way. You hear that? The U.S. has consistently stood in the way. There are also other individuals and groups who are trying to get preventative legislation enacted, and that includes human rights groups like the ACLU, the Red Cross, CAHAR, amongst others who have attempted to pass legislation are the European Parliament and the United Nations Institute for Disarmament Research as part of the UN. As you can probably guess, the U.S. has too much invested in EMP, electromagnetic pulse, technology being developed under the guise of non-lethal crowd control. Weaponized versions are available, mounted, and even handheld units can be dialed to have desired frequency and aimed at an individual. Of course, military grade can be across the street or across the field. That's because waves do exist. And of course, if you know anything about wave technology, then you know they can penetrate most barriers, which is why so much shielding is useless. It may help a little bit in the beginning, but then they just amp up the waves to penetrate whatever shielding it is that you do have, and it becomes useless. They also call them silent kill because generally you can't hear, see, or feel them. And if you're killed, in most cases, they leave no trace evidence. If high levels of X-rays are used over a short time, on low levels over a longer time, it simply looks like you got cancer naturally. And just for the record, there's nobody on both sides of my family, generationally, historically, that has ever developed cancer, Alzheimer's, dementia. Nothing. Zero. No arthritis. No mental illness. There's nothing going on both generationally throughout both sides of my family. So in my article, Uncover Photo Evidence of Global Mind Control Experiment, you can actually see satellite photos of what I believe to be a global wave weapon test. Where would you be able to hide if it were a global wave weapon test? There are other technologies and techniques used as well, from high-tech to low-tech, car horns to airplanes, helicopters, bugs, taps, cameras, V2K, and so on. The goal is to dehumanize you, and much of what they use are probably prototypes. The easiest way to find subjects is without your consent, and that way there's also no lawsuits, no recourse. If the target is accidentally killed or diagnosed with a cancer, that's the deniability. Besides, how can you legally experiment on people by bombarding them with high doses of cancer-causing X-ray radiation, consent or not? Dr. Joseph Mengele, also known as the quote-unquote the angel of death, at Auschwitz concentration camp, World War II, used humans for all types of insane testing in the name of science. Like now we do it in the name of national security, but back then it was in the name of science. Most of his experiments ended in death because that's how they were designed. And hence the name, the Angel of Death. Yeah, no, Joseph Mengele is no damn angel, let me tell you. He tested the limitations of human endurance, among other things, like the effects of chemicals, radiation, amputation, transplants, and other horrors. Even stitching twins together, who of course died. I mean, this is sick, deranged, depraved. This is lunacy. This is depravity. This is psychologically impaired. This is psychosis. Also, he had a fascination with the eyes, and he would have subjects killed just to take their eyes. But unlike our fellow U.S. experiment designers, he was a documented, demented sadist who enjoyed people's sufferings. Here, meaning in the U.S., it's top secret, although it's still sadistic and demented. That's the end of chapter 3. Leave your comments down below.